What is going on, guys? Jeff from High PSI TV. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about the Packard again. And what this video is going to consist of is things that you need to do when you're starting a car that hasn't run in years. This car probably hasn't run in 5 or 6 years. The gentleman I bought it from had it for a year or so. The guy before him let it sit for about 4 years. So just guessing about 5-6 years is how long it's been since it's run. If you are new to the channel, this is a project I picked up about 2 years ago-ish, and the goal was to just get it running, and then I've always wanted to bag an old car and put it on some like 20s or 22s, not chrome or anything weird like that, but some nice steel wheels like from Detroit Steel Wheel Company. And my great-grandfather worked at Packard, so that's kind of why I have a thing for Packards. Side note, first video on the new GoPro, I actually picked up a Hero 7 Black, which is exciting for me. The camera's really cool. It's way better. I usually film on a Hero 4, which is like really old technology. So the new technology is here. So bringing you up to date on what I've done already. So this is a 327 cubic inch straight 8 flathead. And when I bought the car, the wiring was pretty tore up. It looked like someone had started to try to fix it. So I actually removed the entire wiring harness out of the car, headlights, taillights, everything with the engine, because I'm going to start from scratch. But to get it running, I'm going to do the bare minimum. So starter, ignition, and that's going to be about it. Just to make sure that this engine's in good shape, I have 2 more Packards outside that both have engines in them. I don't know the condition of those, but if this one's bad, we're going to move to one of the other ones. But hopefully this thing's in good shape. So what I've done so far is I pulled out the spark plugs and I sprayed Miracle oil in the spark plug holes and spun the engine over by hand just to get some lubrication in the cylinders, and then I put new spark plugs in. I have already had the distributor apart, and it looks like it's been recently rebuilt. Under the distributor cap looks brand new. The points, the condenser, and all the other goodies in there that I know absolutely nothing about because I don't work on old cars. So the whole car had like that cloth wiring in it. It's not like the new rubber coated wires, and it is a 6-volt system in this car. So I'm going to start it up with the 6-volt stuff before I convert it over to 12-volt just to get it running. I want to know that this thing has a good heart in it before I do anything else. So key things when starting a car that's old and hasn't run in a long time is fluids. So you have to have fluids in order for the car to run, and you have to have spark. So electric and fluids. So here's what we ended up with. I already have the carburetor and the fuel pump off of the car, and Max Merit Parts does Packard stuff, and you can see dedicated to keeping Packard on the road. So what I got from them is a complete carburetor rebuild kit, a complete fuel pump rebuild kit, and an oil filter. I have pulled the dipstick on this car, and the oil actually looks clean, which is pretty amazing considering how long it's been sitting. But I will do an oil change on it just to be sure. The transmission I'm not going to worry about right now because I can pull that out a lot easier than the 1,000-pound completely cast iron straight 8. So cooling system, not terribly worried about right now either. The radiator does have a leak in it, but like I said, I have 2 more out there that I can dig through if I need to. So even if the water pump isn't working or whatever, I can let this thing run for a minute without it getting hot, just to make sure that it builds oil pressure and, you know, isn't knocking or dead on a cylinder or whatever. So a few wires to hook up. It's actually really simple. You need an ignition switch to kill power to the distributor, and then basically you have to have a big wire going to the starter, and I'm going to hook up a little push button to spin the starter over, and then I'll have a little switch to turn the ignition on and off. So I do have a book which my parents got for me for Christmas, which is a Packard service manual. And this thing has every wiring diagram. I mean, it's got everything in it. It tells you how to adjust the carburetor. It tells you all about the chassis. And it actually shows you the old school way that they used to adjust everything on these cars. It tells you all about the transmission. So this book has absolutely everything that I will ever need to do whatever I need to do to this car. And the car is in okay shape. It is patinaed. It was restored about 20 years ago. The worst spot on the car is right here on the fender. The interior was complete, but I tore it apart when I was tearing the wiring harness out. And I pulled the carpet out of it too because it smelled pretty terrible. So what I'm going to do is a short video series. There'll be, you know, a video on rebuilding the fuel system, a video on doing the wiring, and then hopefully a video of me starting it. So if your engine is seized up, what I would recommend is spraying actual oil into the cylinders and trying to work the engine back and forth. Cylinders rust, especially in humid climates. You can see I put these spark plugs in brand new about 2 months ago, and the bases of them are already rusted. I just sprayed them all with WD-40 just to make sure that, you know, they will come back out when I need to pull them out. But getting the piston rings off of the cylinder walls is kind of important. When I bought the car, luckily it had a fan belt on it, so I could grab the fan blades and actually turn the motor back and forth by hand, so I knew it at least wasn't seized up. Now, I haven't given the starter power or anything like that to spin it over, you know, with the starter motor, because I don't want to spin it fast. I don't want to build oil pressure. I want all that crap to be drained into the pan, and then I'm going to put fresh oil in it. Something else kind of cool about these is the oil filter sits way up here. So you can see that's the oil filter cartridge, and there is still oil in the oil filter cartridge, or in the oil filter housing right here. So like I said, this should be a fairly simple process, but I'm going to take my time doing it. When I fire this thing up, I want to make sure that, you know, I can let it run for at least a few minutes. I might even fill the radiator with water just to make sure that it is circulating some coolant through it, even though the radiator leaks. It'll probably all leak out in 20-25 minutes, but just kind of peace of mind that there is water in the engine block just to help keep things cool. So this carburetor is like nothing I've ever seen before. So it comes with a bunch of gaskets and like a needle in seat, some jets, and some springs. So when I rebuild this, I'm going to take it apart piece by piece, and I'll lay it out on this entire table in order. Even though I have a service manual that tells me how to put it together, you can't go up to your local repair shop and say, hey, I've got this Carter 851 carburetor, I forgot how to put it back together, because no one's going to know how to work on these anymore. And same thing with the fuel pump. This isn't like, you know, what I'm used to on like a small block Chevy. This fuel pump actually has 2 diaphragms in it, and I've never seen anything like it before. It's actually kind of complicated. So I'll rebuild this in the same way that I rebuild the carburetor. Lay it all out on the table, and then put it back together, you know, in order that I took it apart. As far as fuel line and fuel tank goes, I am not going to put a new fuel tank in this right now, and I'm not going to run new fuel lines yet. What I'll have is like a jug of fuel sitting over here with a line that goes over to the fuel pump. I think that's fine as long as you have good rubber hose connecting the two, and keep it far enough away from the car that if you ever have a backfire or the carburetor decides to catch on fire, that is not going to ignite your fuel jug or drum or whatever you have on fire at the same time. Yeah, so pretty excited about the Packard, and I've gotten rid of some stuff in the past week, so I've got a little bit of cash freed up that I can start working on this thing. And if I can get it running, that's going to be step number 1. Step number 2 is going to be sure that the transmission works. And then after that, we're going to go steering and brakes. So if I could make this thing move under its own power and stop under its own power, I might bolt the seat back in it and drive it around for a little while with a new set of tires on it. Luckily, there is a big enough following for Packards that you can get parts for them. I can get ball joints, I can get brake shoes. So the plan with the wiring is going to be to put like a 12 circuit harness in it. So that'll do, you know, headlights, turn signals, brake lights, interior lights, and then the gauges and all I'll have to do on my own. But on a car this old, luckily most of them are mechanical. So like the water temp gauge is mechanical. So that wiring is like a capillary tube that goes from the engine to the gauge. Speedometer is cable driven off the transmission. There is no tachometer, which is really no big deal. If I want to get a little bit more creative, I have a whole set of autometer gauges here that I took out of the Buick that I'll hide in the glove box or something like that, because I want to keep this dash looking pretty much original. I want to keep the whole car looking pretty much original, except for the stance and stuff like that. So if you look inside the car, I mean, you can tell it's been weathered. Of course, the headliner's sagging, but everything was here. I have door panels, I have all that kind of stuff, but this is one of the major issues right here. The floorboard and the rocker on this side. Now, this floorboard's already been replaced once. You can see someone just laid some sheet metal over it and screwed it in. Kind of looks like an old road sign. But someone's been under the dash already trying to rewire it. This is all new wiring. But I'm going to start over on that stuff. No air conditioning on this car, so it's going to be a lot of work. This isn't the first car that I have built frame up or restored, I guess you could say. This is probably the car that I'm most excited about fixing up, and I want to do it right. I'm going to take my time with it, but I'm not going to do any body work to this thing except fix that little spot on the fender right there. I don't want it to be a rat rod, but I want it to be kind of like a Restomod where, you know, everything works like it's supposed to, and hopefully I can make it handle better with the bigger wheel and tire combination and air ride, stuff like that. We'll get rid of the leaf springs in back. I'll probably do like a 4-link, triangulated 4-link in the back. Up front, I'm going to modify the stock control arms. Basically, fluids, electrical, and I'm going to get this thing running, and after that, hopefully moving on its own power. I have sourced a couple companies to get all the stuff that I need, and this baby right here is going to be what helps me do it all. So, just a quick video to let you guys know what's going on with the Packard on the new GoPro Hero 7. Kind of excited about it, except it stopped recording a few times on its own, and I don't know why. Maybe it thinks I'm not talking to it. I'm not sure. We'll look into that. But, yeah, look for videos on this thing. The Tahoe's done. The Buick's good. I will be taking the Tahoe back to the track in a little while. I'm going to put a smaller wheel and tire combo on it, so be watching out for that video. And yeah, real excited. So thank you guys for watching, as always. I appreciate it. And as always, I have t-shirts in the link in the description below. And we will see you guys next time.